So I thought before we jump into today's lesson that we would do a quick recap of some of the ideas that we learned about naming chemical compounds in yesterday's lesson. So over here on the right, what I've listed are a few examples of chemical formulas, and I'd like you to take a minute and do your best to try and name them according to the IUPAC rules that we've been learning. So pause the video now and then come back when you're ready, and we'll take up the solutions together. All right, so let's take up the first question, CaO. And so I've written here that the answer to that, the correct name for CaO would be calcium oxide. So some of the thought process that went into naming it that way was that I saw that calcium was a metal and oxygen is a non-metal. So immediately I'm sort of in this zone where I'm not using any of the prefixes. I also noticed that calcium is a monovalent metal, which means that it can only have one possible charge, and so I don't need to use any Roman numerals or any Latin names or any of that business. So hopefully you got that right. Let's check out the next solution. So for the next question, I had to name FeO, and so again I'm going to look at the two elements that make up the compound, and I have iron, which is a metal, and oxygen, which is a non-metal. So automatically that tells me that I'm not going to be using any of my prefixes at all. And also my iron is a multivalent metal. It can have a 2+ or a 3+ charge. And so when I do a little bit of analysis across a reverse crossover rule, I know that the only possible charge for iron in this compound is +2. Hence the iron 2 oxide. So I've included that in parentheses and after the name of the metal. Another option for me that some of you may have used is to use the Latin prefix and the appropriate ending or suffix. So ferrous oxide, OUS, because iron can have 2 charges, and the lower of them is the one that is in this compound, with iron having a 2+ charge. Let's take a look at the answer to the final question. So when I look at the two elements that make up the compound NO, I take a look at it and I see that they're both nonmetals. So that is an occasion where I'm not going to be using my crossover rule. I notice that it appears to be reduced, but that's just a function of the number of atoms that are in this molecule. And so I'm going to use my prefixes to indicate to the reader how many of each element are present in the formula. So since I have 1 nitrogen, I begin with nitrogen. Since I have 1 oxygen atom in this compound, I'm going to use the prefix mono to indicate that there is 1 oxygen present, and monoxide, the "ide" ending, of course, because that's how I change the ending of any element that is in position 2 in a binary compound. Hopefully you did okay with it. If you have any questions, again, remember to come and see me for some extra help at lunch or before school in order to get some extra assistance.